Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board. Today is November 19th, 2020. Kate, can you announce who's present?
Yes, we have Don Radke, Cynthia Carter, Tom Cantwell, Bob Haley, Julia Marshall, and Lisa Tonzi.
Okay, good.
I'd like to ask everyone who's not speaking to go ahead and mute themselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next order of business is to, I need a motion to accept the minutes. Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, thank you very much. Any changes, modifications?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
On the last item regarding Brattle Road, in the last paragraph regarding the site work for 12 Brattle Road, in the middle of that paragraph, it says Jeff Romano recommended against the retaining wall. I think that should say installing a new retaining wall, as it was not part of the original property, or not part of the original landscape. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of accepted the minutes as submitted and amended?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Abstain. Okay.
Tom and Julia need to abstain. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Okay, all in favor? Okay, we're all good. Motion carries. I'm sorry. Next order is old business. There is no old business. And the next order of business is C of A -20-20 902 Rugby Road fence installation. Is that applicant here?
Yeah. Can you see my I'm sorry. Can you see my my screen?
Yes.
I got the agenda posted. Yeah.
You got the agenda. Okay, good. That's what I was hoping. All right. And so now I'll pull up the.
Kate, are you going to carry this one?
No, the applicant is online.
Okay.
Lou, you want to introduce the project?
Yeah. So my name is Louis. I live at 902 Rugby Road.
Okay, and I just want to make something clear. My understanding is you are a tenant on the property, but Kate, you have permission of the owner of the property, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, go on.
Yep. So basically, we are a wooden 6-foot privacy fence, well within the designated area for on our property line. I think right now we are a foot all the way in, just the backyard. It doesn't go beyond the front or the back edge of the house, both sides. So strictly just in the backyard. Basically, all we're doing is asking permission for a wood fence. It is hemlock, and it will bring us back to the house.
Somebody has to mute. There's a lot of interference. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on, sir.
Yep. So it's the wooden privacy material is hemlock, which is a natural. It's a wood just like cedar. Just another route basically. Cedar was hard to get this year due to everything going on, so we went the hemlock route. It's a completely custom fence, so it's not like store bought or anything like that. It's all going to be custom. And we're also going to paint it in the spring to match the house color. So everything will look basically just like it would look like a house.
Okay, what is the color of the house?
The house is a off-white, almost like a tan, and like it's just 2 light shades of tan, basically.
The house is actually green, I believe, isn't it? Like a light green?
No.
Well, I live up the street, and it doesn't really matter. The house looks green to me. So
it's like the shutters are like a gray green, but the actual color, the trim's an off-white, and actual color of the house is like a beige.
Don, that would have to be brought back in the spring.
Yeah.
No, we'll approve it now.
The color?
Do we have a color sample?
I don't have the color sample, so that we would just want to confirm that it was
We
matched
would
to the house.
mention anything on Kate's review of the color.
Okay.
Yeah, I can bring it back in the spring if that's what we need to do. Before I paint anything, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. I just also want to inform the board that a permit was obtained on this fence. It was begun, but the permit department did not refer this. Who is not muted?
Susan, I think you need to mute. Susan Edmonds?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
There we go. All right.
Okay, great, thank you. But the permit department did not inform us, require a C of A, so that was discovered and the work was stopped. So the fence is partially begun, but this is the fence. So I just want to have full transparency.
I had a question.
Sure.
Has the owner considered leaving it natural and go natural and more or less disappear into the landscape as opposed to be painted a very light color that will stand out? Has that been thought about, or would other on the board like to comment on that?
I was thinking the same.
So our only thought behind not leaving it natural, tend to hemlock and cedar, because I install fences professionally as a career. Hemlock and cedar, I don't know if you guys are aware, but a lot of it after a year or so, it tends to start to gray.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like that gray look. Me and the owner aren't 100% on board with how it starts to look a dark gray after a long period of time. So, and also it's gonna inherit the longevity of it by either staining it or painting it. Because what we would do is we paint it every single year, or we'd stain it every single year. And out of a hemlock or a natural wood like that, you're going to get anywhere between 10 to 15 years where we live in our climate out of a fence like that. To whereas if you stain it or paint it every single year, you could increase that to almost 20 years. So with this project, we have almost $9,000 in materials. We would like to make that $9,000 last as long as humanly possible. So that's our main thought behind that, is basically it's just a return on our investment. It's going to last a little bit longer.
Are you talking about staining or painting?
I'm just using that. Whatever way you go, that's what you're going to get an extra 5 years out of it, whether you paint or stain it. So that's why we want.
What's your intention, to stain or paint?
To paint.
Paint, okay.
Yeah, I thank you, by the way, for knowing that you're in the business makes a big difference. You are right about the materials. Yet my point was that the character of the fence and the impact of the fence on your property visually could be reduced by staining it a natural stain to protect its longevity, and not painting it as a white feature or a light feature, which will stand out as a much larger object in the neighborhood. So that was what I wanted you in particular, your owner, to consider for the long term of this property.
Absolutely, I see what you're saying. I thought you were meaning by just not painting or.
No.
Yeah, I could definitely bring that up.
I think that we need to see a picture of the.
Yes.
I think we need to see. I think we need to see a picture of the elevation here, if you've got one. Color elevation, perhaps, not just
color
the fence of the
elevation of the
house.
house.
Yeah.
Color elevation of the house.
It was in the application, I believe.
I have a problem that none of it was received at my house, so I'm at a loss.
Yeah. Sorry, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find that for us.
Yeah.
It should have been attached to this application.
So while Kate is looking for that, what we're
It was in the cover of your Kate's minutes regarding a new business, and there's 2 photographs of the house on the first page.
right.
Oh, yes.
So what we're talking about is potentially, if there's no other objection, the only discussion is, number one, getting a sample if it's painted a different color, or number 2, staining it and a clear.
Right.
Right. So basically, in the spring, reach out to Kate again before we do anything as far as painting or staining. Once we obtain samples, as far as like the one gentleman suggested, maybe go a clear or a very light neutral color to match the landscape, or also bring our idea as far as matching it to the house to the table, and then we could bring that to you guys and see what you guys would prefer over one or the other. But obviously, we wouldn't be doing any painting or staining until, I wouldn't even say June. So obviously, we'd have.
So we would make our C of A subject to that. Are there any other comments about the fence by any other member of the board, or Kate, do you have any comments?
I think I'm sorry. Let me just finish my comment both to the owner and to the board. I would recommend keeping a natural, subdued, natural wood look to this element and not to paint it white. That would be my recommendation to the owner.
Yeah. And he's just acknowledged that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment about the fence? Any other comments, Kate, from anybody?
I would just like to please, for the record, just remind the owner that any further work on this home needs to come to us as far as any certificate of appropriateness in the future. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed with the designation privacy fence, because looking at the design of the fence, I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite so private that really ensures absolute privacy behind the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that you could get they make a lot of common fences that you see of the dog-eared or the cedar look like that, which is just board-on-board pickets. But we wanted to make it look as much like a PVC fence and as much of a custom look with nice trim and stuff like that as possible. Because obviously we understand the neighborhood that we're in. We just didn't want to throw up any kind of dog-eared fence. So we wanted to make it as custom and as good looking as we possibly could.
Okay, with that, I'd like to have somebody, if there's no other comment, make a motion to accept this, subject to review of any staining or painting in the spring.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moving forward. Zoning referral, project site review, PR-20-21, 301-311 South Salina Street. Again, for the board's edification, our jurisdiction here is one of comment. In here. Kate, is the applicant online?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Jim.
Hi, Jim Niddle here from In Architects.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks.
Good.
I was going to get another cup of coffee. I figured you'd be talking about that fence for another 10 minutes.
Nah.
Haha.
Saving it for you, Jim.
You got the floor, Jim. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, Kate, I don't know if you have the elevation put up.
Oh, I can do that. Let's see here.
Just as easy for you to put it up. Anyway,
Let me go ahead and do that.
We're in the early stages of a renovation project for the old Woolworth building on the corner of Salina and Fayette. And we're actually in for, though not totally official, we're in for permit for this for ground floor tenant space. We're also kind of fast tracking, parallel pathing the historic tax credit application process. Part one is on its way to national parks. Part two has not been submitted, but I've been working with Julian.
Let me interrupt you just for a second, Jim. Please have everybody mute. This is getting very, very difficult. Okay, Jim.
I actually had Julian Adams here on Monday, and we walked the project together. We have had discussions regarding the elevation, the storefront work. He's in agreement with what we're doing. So I don't know, for those of you that remember, the original Woolworth storefront came right out to the face of the building, had very large plate glass display windows, and several entrances on Salina and a side entrance on Fayette. So that's our intention, to bring that storefront back out to the face of the building. The black granite panel, a little knee wall, and then as large of glass as we can do. And we're fortunate that most of the terracotta is in very good shape. Some of it's been painted on the Fayette side. That paint will come off and expose the terracotta. Above, it's in very good shape. The windows, unfortunately, the windows are in very good shape, and National Parks is going to insist on us rehabbing the existing windows, which is always a little problematic depending on what we do with the upper floors. The whole storm screen business is sometimes crazy, but and then we're shortly in the near future here, we're going to do some exploration to see how badly the terracotta at the top, at the pyramid, what the condition of that is. It all got covered up in the 80s or whatever. I think it was early 80s. I'm sure it was covered up because there was something leaking and somebody just didn't like the way it looked and didn't want to maintain it. So it's covered up in plywood and plastered over. And honestly, I haven't come across anybody yet who knows what the condition of that was. So
I do.
yeah.
No, I can give you history on that, Jim, if you need it. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'd love to hear more. So hopefully they didn't destroy it completely when they put the framing up there, but we'll see. Yeah, any information you have about would be great.
Well, essentially, I'll just give you that right now. That was a John Stoughton project under QPK, and it was to protect damaging terracotta at the top. So it was essentially covered.
Yeah, but how badly was it beat up when they put the framing on?
I don't recall. I don't know.
Yeah.
It probably was in pretty poor condition for them to cover it for a financial reason.
And it was the terracotta cornice work was decorative and undulating and therefore exposed to all of the elements. So it was maintenance.
Yeah.
It definitely was a maintenance cost issue to stabilize it, and this is how they did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure this was the most cost-effective way to take care of the problem. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Jim, can I ask a question? I don't have the packet, but I've got it up on my phone in terms of looking at the building. So at the street level, all the brick comes out.
All the brick.
And you're going to replace it with terracotta and? No,
there's no new terracotta. The existing terracotta is what was there. So
right.
Whenever this work was done by Rite Aid or whoever it was in the 70s and 80s, they pushed the elevation back in
right
4 feet, and that's all. That was never there. So the original elevation was actually out at the face of the building.
And that's what you're going to do, correct?
That's what we're going to do. We're going to bring it right back out to the face of the building the way it used to be.
So at grade, what is the black material? I might have missed it. Is that going to be?
There's an 18-inch black granite panel at the
Okay.
bottom, and some of that still exists on the Fayette side.
Okay.
Just following Julia's questions there, Jim, do you have any original photographs of the original storefront?
Yeah, not terribly close up, but we do have some of the original.
Yeah. Thank you. That would be helpful. And I wish we did have photographs close up, because my second question was regarding your new proposed detail for your glass storefront. This building, the actual detail, I think we need to see that in order to make a fair comment. Exactly how the new glass wall in this new position interfaces with the existing terracotta above. That would have been the critical detail of the original building. Just the way you see the stepped indents for the windows on the upper floors. And that's what we need to see to make it.
No, I actually have some original details.
Good.
And the section we've cut through there is very close to what was there originally. The only difference was using aluminum storefront system versus the plate glass and
Right.
The detailing that was done in 1940.
No. Thank you. I think I'm just concerned about how many inches back that storefront is, and it has to be a matter of up to 4 inches typically. I just don't know.
No, it's flush.
But we need to see the detail. That'd be great.
I'm assuming you're flush with your columns, because from the picture here that I'm looking at, it appears like the terracotta is proud of the column just a bit by probably the thickness of the terracotta. So you're bringing it out flush with the columns, correct?
Well, the columns that you see on Salina Street are actually interior. They're interior to the building after the storefront goes up.
Just need to see a detail.
If I'm hearing the board, excuse me, if I'm hearing the board correctly, I think our comment's going to be generally in favor and approving of what you're doing, subject to seeing final details on exactly where it's going to be and what that connection is going to be and it attaches itself. Is that correct?
That's correct. Kate, do you have a way? Kate, can you give me control?
Yeah, you need to be able to share. Do you see a button that says, hold on, oh wait, no, I think I can assign you. Sorry, make this participant.
It would be helpful if you could zoom in so that I could see.
Jim, I think you have control now.
All right, hold on a second here. Can you? Yeah, I don't think so. Are you?
Sorry?
You're not seeing the screen, are you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can you share? Have you found the share button? It should be at the bottom of your screen, next to the mute and video.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom it says share.
I got it. Yep. All right, hold on a second here. All right, let me just all right, okay, are you seeing my screen?
No.
Not yet.
Why is this not sharing? Share my screen. Oops.
There we go.
All right, good. Okay, so here's what the store looked like originally.
Pretty cool.
Zoom in a little bit, but basically the terracotta band that's there now, there was a pocket for awnings right here, and it was simply as very, very flush with it all, plate glass and the black granite, a couple entrance doors here. So let me show you that wall section. Let's see, right here.
Oh,
Can you zoom in on that?
it's perfect.
So this is even better here. So,
Yeah. If you can
So-
zoom, yeah, perfect.
so Bob,
Yeah.
and everyone, here's the terracotta.
Right.
There was a pocket here for awnings.
Mhm.
And it was just that, the storefront sat just, slightly, but here's the line of the framing. So it really was flush right down to the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you have a plan just of that, where the column is, just so I can understand it? I'm sorry, I'm at a loss. I didn't receive the packet, so I'm
So
just trying to.
the columns that you see on Salina Street were actually inside of the
Right.
Okay, okay, perfect. So you're going back to that scenario,
We're
correct?
going right back here. This line's right up with the face of the building.
Okay, perfect.
You have a couple pocketed doors. That's good.
Yeah, Jim, this is exactly what I needed, Jim. Thank you. Secondly, my comment would be, do you have any head detail to reflect the original awning pocket feature?
What's there now is they just put an aluminum panel. If just above the storefront right now is it's kind of it's the same color as the terracotta, so it's not even really noticeable. We really have no intention of putting the awning back in.
So are you leaving that? You're leaving the panel as is.
We're leaving that panel as is. Yes.
Okay.
Is that panel, is it truly painted to look like the terracotta? Is that what you're telling me there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have a preliminary kind of section through here that I can share with you in a moment here.
Good, that'd be great.
So here's the original detail, if you can see.
Mm-hmm.
We're simply coming in. This is where that pocket is. This is the face of the terracotta, and we really just want to bring your storefront down, and then we'll create a new knee wall with the granite. And we have some waterproofing issues we have to deal with because we're over this.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That would have answered a lot of my questions. I think that the question here is how the original curtain, how your new glass storefront fits with this critical detail. The pocket, again, you're saying above the sidewalk, you're 1'6". Is that right? No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
the panels that are out there now are 18 inches. Yes.
okay, and that's existing now, right?
Yeah, we're just going to line up with the existing panels that remain there's some on the Fayette side.
So is that on your page 6 of your photographs? Is that bottom horizontal band that's colored like the terracotta? Is that the panel that you show in your drawing?
I'm not sure what page 6 is showing.
Page 6 of your color photos from your office, yeah. Basically, it's the bottom band of terracotta colored panel. It looks like just above this office. So that must be the panel you're talking about. Okay.
You talking about this?
That's 6.
This piece right here.
Yes, exactly. So you're saying that's metal and painted to terracotta. Is that right?
Yeah, that's an aluminum panel that's
Existing. Okay.
painted to match the terracotta color.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
This is all. Excuse me. On this end, this is all existing. This
Right.
and the door are existing.
So are you going to be able to insulate behind that? Sorry.
It's right behind
That panel.
this panel here.
Yeah, the existing.
Yeah, we have to pull some of this open and see what they actually did with that in there. I suspect it's just an empty box.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's an empty box, so you're probably going to insulate either from behind it or pull it off.
Yeah,
I would assume you'd want to not pull it off and get to it from behind because you're building out, it looked like in your detail, you're doing something there.
mhm.
But that's your view.
Yeah, and that's, again, we'll have to explore that a little bit more. There's a steel beam in there and a big channel and stuff, so I don't know how well, we may be able to get to it from below when we.
Well, let me just end this conversation. Thank you, Jim, for the details you've shown us now here through this sharing your screen. That answers all of my technical questions that I needed to know about the original glass wall of the original building. I would like to compliment you for reinstituting the corner door, which was the primary feature. Is this what you found underneath, or what are you?
Actually, Bob, that was a display window, but
Are you sure?
absolutely.
Okay.
Do you have the original plan there? I thought you just showed it. Fine. If you've got that in your plans, you're fine. Thank you.
Okay, so to move this along, again, our jurisdiction is the comment, and from what I'm hearing and the answers to the question, our comment is in the affirmative and support. I would ask the applicant that as you open it up and as you get responses back from Chippo and the Park Service, if there's any changes in detail or substance, please get back to us.
I certainly will. Yeah, and again, we went through different iterations of this with Julian, and he's happy with what we're trying to do here. So,
okay.
That's
All right. Well,
Julian
that's great. It's going to be a big improvement.
Thanks, Jim.
and hopefully, the hope is that we can
Restore that.
restore the top and
Yeah.
rebuild this tower element a little bit that was taken down, just to give that corner a little more presence, which would be really cool.
Well, we'll be anxious to see.
I'm sure that Stolpen's office would have photographs of that before they covered it.
Anybody in particular there that you remember working on that would
Yeah, it was Jim Mowett's project. He's since passed away. It was in the 80s, probably the late 80s. But Jim Mowat, and of course Jim Kaplan's still there. He would, if Jim would know it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll reach out.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Great, Jim. Take care. Okay, moving forward to our last item on today's agenda is discussion. This is a pre-development discussion on 910 Madison. Kate, are all the participants on?
I believe so. I'm just waiting for Jim to leave.
Yeah, release.
Or release. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
Okay, before I turn it over to the applicant, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, again, this is a pre-development discussion. So this is not final comments by this entity, by the LPB. One thing that the applicant has asked if we could get firmed up today at a minimum is the footprint of the actual sanctuary that's being saved, so that we had if you remember, and we'll report to the board, I believe it was Cynthia, Bob, and me, we had a discussion with them and talking about the connection and between the sanctuary and the actual new construction. And that was modified from what they presented us. So if at the very least today we can come to an agreement on the footprint, we'll go forward. Then there's obviously other items that Kate did a very good job in our packet, as well as communication back to the applicant as to the ongoing concerns. The overall height and scale is something that this is a massive building, and that needs to be discussed. There were several items asked for. Kate, I don't see any. I don't see a complete list, site grading plan. I don't see that.
Yeah, no, we don't have the complete list of items yet. I think that
Okay.
the applicant, well, they'll explain how. Actually, there's someone named Mark Meyer who is unmuted. If you could please mute. Let's see. Maybe, oh, I can mute them. There we go. All right. Okay, I think that should help. I did just want to note that the applicants have submitted, it's our understanding that there's some requests for variances before the BZA, or will be coming before the BZA, and they are in regard to the density, parcel coverage, and, as they say, encroachment into the setbacks or the side yards. In other words, the size and density of this proposal is beyond what is allowed by right by zoning. So obviously, then they're looking for variances. But the BZA is also looking for LPB's direction and comment in regard to the
size, the scale,
those issues, before they can decide whether or not they're going to approve the variances. So that's why this is an important discussion.
Okay, so I'd like to turn it over to the development team. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning, James Trasher from CHA. We're the site civil engineers. On the phone with us today is Mark Riley and Aaron Stang from Landmark Properties. John Harding from Cube 3, who is the project architect, and his team is on the phone as well. And really, a good portion of the conversations that we've had in the past has been about the sanctuary, the connection, the massing, and scale next to the existing sanctuary. So I'll kick it over to John. Some of the components that, will come up through the certificate of appropriateness and that when we come back in terms of the site plan, the grading plan, the landscape plan. We're working with the city staff from Steve Harris on the as a city arborist to the city engineers department to go through some of those comments before we resubmit to you. But really want to go through the building elements, connection points, the look and the feel today and get some good feedback from you so we can continue the process with both your board and then start the process with the BZA. So John, take it away.
Great, thanks, James. So I appreciate the summary of kind of the process that we've been going through, working with this board. Mark from Landmark and I were talking before this and realized that we've been at this with you for almost a year now from our initial meeting. So we appreciate your time and patience as we've been working through this. I think we had a really productive working session about a month ago on October 20th. From that, we had a really good conversation about what identifies the extents of the sanctuary, what our original assumptions were for that, understanding where the board was coming from with their recommendation, and then talking through just kind of logistics and code compliance and constructability for kind of a middle ground that we think I think we came to kind of a consensus amongst us all that we were headed in the right direction. So just to, let's see. Just to kind of summarize that, this kind of bird's eye image here looking at the existing building, the area that's shown in red is what we had proposed originally to be the extent of the sanctuary space that we were proposing to keep. And that was what our original application for the certificate of appropriateness contained. We understood after that from your letter that you were looking to extend that basically to this edge over here where the secondary door is with this other stair up the hill. Through our conversation last time, we had a lot of we had a good conversation about like what's happened inside that building. There's a lot of different floor levels. There's stairs. There's ramps. There's been a lot of turnover for what that space is, and it's really a conglomeration of a bunch of little tiny spaces that are at different levels, not accessible, and make it difficult for there to be a strong connection to the main space. So where we came from there is that we talked about extending the amount that we would keep to the back of the platform into the balustrade, and I have an image of that here shortly so we can all talk about exactly where that line goes. And we've updated our plans and resubmitted them. So you should have seen those at this point, showing that the new extension of the building goes all the way back to the backside of that platform, and the rear wall with the balustrade to where the choir loft was or currently is. All of that would maintain.
John, can you give us the width? How far back from that back wall does that platform that we're now talking about reach? Is that 6 feet, 10 feet, something like that?
It was so the way our building's massed, we actually step it back. It's about 6.5 feet to a large portion of our mass, and then it's actually about 8 to 8.5 feet at the lower and upper levels for our building. So especially down at the lowest level, it's going to be about 8 to 8 feet. And in that space is where we're going to be making, our flexible connections between the buildings to fire rated connections. So there's a lot of code things that are going to have to happen at that joint as well. So we've given enough space in our revised plans to accommodate that. But we looked back at the historical drawings to figure out exactly what that dimension was, and it looked to be, from what our original assumption, it was about another 6.5 feet minimum to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're drawing.
Can we stop right there and just get any additional board comment? Again, as I stated in our working group with Cynthia, Bob, and myself and Kate, that's kind of the discussion and the direction. John is correct that we were talking. So I just want any other board comment on that footprint and that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, just to comment, that drawing that you now have up there, John, is exactly what we received, which is 8'3" and that blue color band there corresponds to the blue on your aerial photograph. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, this blue area responds to the other blue area, and so I think one of the main pieces of that conversation that I haven't really touched on is that we're going to be able to keep this primary corner of the existing sanctuary space visible from Madison Street. And also this steps in and steps down. So if I go back to the image, you can see it steps back from this corner. So this corner gets to be maintained. But we also see the roof line being maintained at the backside of this space.
Yes, that's definitely in the direction that we were recommending. So thank you for that adjustment to your progress there.
Okay, so
can I ask one question?
Sure.
Do you have the plan of the original and a dashed line that shows that dimension?
I don't have our original plans here, but the original plan, it went right to the back corner here. So this line of the building here used to be right on the left side of this blue.
No, I meant, well, of the original, from the original temple. Just so that it's dashed so everybody understands how much space behind the sanctuary is actually still in terms of this piece.
Here, I'll try to open that up in the background here.
I think it would just solidify in terms of whether it's 6 feet, whether it's 8 feet, what it is, what it's taking.
Sure.
Second floor, at the mezzanine up there where the choir loft is, probably is most helpful.
Is what?
Most helpful.
It should open up in a minute. Let's see. These drawings are a little slow, so I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
All right, so this is probably one of the better plans to show.
Yep.
So
thank you.
I'll zoom in a little bit here too. Shifted pages on me.
Okay.
So
Right.
So our original plan proposed to come to the backside of these columns through here.
Right.
And now we've moved it over to be the backside of this wall. And actually a little bit more than that, but if I really zoom in here, you can see this is where we pulled about 6.5 feet from our original assumption to the new assumption. So we're 6.5 feet on the upper floors, and we're actually more than that on this lowest floor. To give us some room to help make the connection and we're back out a little bit here.
So the 6.5 feet was basically a very a logical point to pull it back to based on the original plan as well.
Right.
Because you avoid the stair behind it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
All of this that's been like reworked over and over. This is what would go away. The balustrade on the second floor is aligned on this wall here, so that would be kept. And we're going to maintain the connection points into the space at this door here and this door here. So we're not having to work with, trying to make up grade from here to here and here to, like, it's kind of all over the place. So this door and this door are at a consistent height that we'll be able to make the connections into the new building through there.
No, I appreciate this drawing. I think it's really helpful for everybody to see because it to me, it seems logical as the point, it wasn't arbitrary in terms of the 6.5.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that discussion, is there any other comment from the board on this connection portion of the discussion and the footprint that we're talking about? And I guess I'll just put it differently. Is this acceptable if this comes through as a final application, just as it relates to the connection?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want the development team to understand that this iteration is with the approval of the board, subject, of course, to whatever shows up in the final C of A application.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you.
So let's go to one of the other big issues so we can just keep this moving forward in this efficient manner. As Kate had mentioned, you guys are applying for multiple variances due to density, setbacks, et cetera, which brings the overall size and scale of the building together or to the forefront. And this is big, this is massive. I know several board members have expressed and voiced concern about that. And so we'd like to know if you guys are having any thoughts. I know when we had our working session, we certainly understand the need of the project to have a certain apartment count and all of that. That said, this is a big building. And there's concern expressed that the shading on the north side and dominating Madison Street, the overshadowing of structures to the east side, the south side elevation is massive. So with that, I'll throw the floor back to you.
So I definitely will get to those comments. I have a series of images that you guys had asked to see. So they're out of Google Earth. We were able to put our building in there. It shows a lot of context, especially at the bird's eye view. It's when you get down to grade, just the way Google Earth works, it like kind of puts together a bunch of pictures. So it's not, those pictures are a little bit blurry. So I apologize for that. But before we get to that, if you don't mind, I would just want to touch on a couple other things that you guys asked us to look at.
Sure.
You asked us to try to increase the width of this courtyard. And so what we did is without creating constructability issues or additional variance requests, we were able to move this whole leg of the building 2 feet to the south.
Great.
So that we were able to, we reworked the massing like slight amount. We reworked some balcony depths, and we were able to shift that whole building. So we were able to increase this courtyard from 25 feet to 27 feet, approximately. And we think that made a nice change, and it definitely gives a little bit more breathing room in there. The other change that we made, and going back to like one of our very first conversations about what we were calling the kind of glass box, which we had already pushed back and we felt like it was more just part of the facade treatment. It was protruding about 3.5 feet or so. And so we've pushed that back about 6 feet in both directions. So this pink kind of L shape shows the extent of where we were in our original COA application and now where we're at. So this being strictly amenity space, we've actually infilled with a unit on the second floor there. So we've reduced the height of the glass, but the massing and proportions of that element, and you'll see in a updated rendering in a second, kind of what that looks like. But we feel like it's pushed it back. It increases the sight lines to the sanctuary, and it helps open up the threshold into that courtyard as well, which our conversations. So just letting you know that we have been able to make some changes there that we feel are we're actually very positive to the project.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Both of those are definitely helpful to the intent.
Just kind of how some of these things are working too. So now you're walking in the main entrance on the ground floor. You come up a double height space. The leasing center is moved to the second floor. So as we've made these modifications to increase this setback or the existing temple, we didn't move the parking, so everything just got a little thinner. So there used to be a unit over here on the street side that just wasn't. It was all by itself. So we're moving that to the leasing center. You'll be able to come up a grand stair to that leasing center, and then up another continuation of that stair to the level that connects to the existing temple floor. And then from the courtyard, just to give you an idea of like what we're programming. So this is still very conceptual, but we're excited about trying to push the ideas here of what we're doing. We've actually moved the entrance from this leg from this bottom left corner around into the courtyard space. We feel like that's a nice change. It's going to help bring activation and movement of people around the corner. It also makes it feel like a residential entrance, and rather instead of a kind of secondary main entrance. So we feel like that was a really nice positive move. It helps really bring movement around the corner and into this courtyard space. Additionally, and so the frontage here will be all with fitness, creating a lot of activity out on University. Fitness centers in these types of developments are one of the most highly used amenities. So you'll constantly have people in this space. And then as you get to the courtyard, we're kind of creating our games room and club lounge and including an indoor and outdoor bar over here. So really trying to create an activity zone that is both inside and outside and really gets to take advantage of the visual of that historic facade. So we really want to activate the space a lot. So just wanted to let you guys know that we're trying to do programming inside that's going to help really make that a really wonderful place to be. I have just kind of more floor plans going through here. I'll skip through these relatively quickly. This one I think is important to show though. So this being here, the existing wall in the balustrade area, we are adding an amenity space here to basically to replace the choir loft, keep that volume of space internal to the building, but with a new accessible area that people can get to from the building and be able to activate that space and keep that kind of interaction viewing out over the majority of the temple space. I think this, yeah. So what that would be, obviously all of the adornments from the temple will be going with the congregation, including the organ, but this balustrade would stay, this whole rear wall would stay, and this space up here would become that amenity space overlooking the main sanctuary. So really, although we're not keeping the actual choir loft, we're keeping the volume of space and the interaction that exists today, so it really wouldn't feel much different.
So you're keeping the balustrade at the existing choir loft, correct?
Right, and we'll put our new floor height, right? Because now we don't have to worry about what the floor height back there is. We'll put our new floor height at a height that works to make sure that that's the code.
That was what I was going to ask, is because if I recall, the balustrade is low now.
It's very low.
So the floor will be below it, so that in fact you do not have to raise or create a guardrail.
Correct. So if I click the floor plan, what you'll see is that this area is accessed from an elevator lobby on a half level from the main building. So we're not trying to make the main building in this space have to align and letting that be something that's holding us back. We're going to be able to make this floor be whatever height we need to get that connection to work.
Okay. I'm just asking in terms of, you won't have to put in a guardrail behind it.
Nope.
To meet your heights. Okay.
That's our intention, is that we will not have to do that. That's
okay.
And then just the upper floor. So going to, I think right now we'll be able to talk a little bit more about kind of the mass and scale and some of the other adjustments that we've made. Here, I just want to focus on the right side here, where we've assessed this volume. We've kept kind of like a little fin that surround here. I think it's really important to the feel of the space and for bringing a nice kind of pedestrian scaled volume. 2 stories is always like a really nice sized element to walk up against. And so especially as we're bringing people, the connection from the sidewalk will still be at this far corner, and we're bringing people around here in this plaza space to the new front door. So pushing this back, but keeping some sort of element that says this is still a primary corner and a visual that's important to the building. We felt like that worked really well. Changing the scale of residential windows so you get a second texture instead of it being a 2-story volume of glass. And then again, just putting storefront here, we brought the balconies down 1 additional floor, really making the residential feel come down that corner. And we feel like this is a much improved version of how this facade was working before. And it is a little bit hard to see, but you do have that setback. So I think one thing that's nice is you'll see this corner detail on the temple, but we're also able to get more windows down. So there's less blank space around the backside of the temple than we had before. So having that kind of come a little lower, it worked out really well to give a more consistent textured backdrop, I think, to that building. We have the elevations here if we need to talk to them if you have any questions, but I'm just going to skip ahead to some of the 3D images of what we have. So the first couple here are just some aerials showing the building in context. There's clearly some other larger scale buildings around, so we don't feel like the general footprint and siting of the building is out of context with other examples in the area. And then we have some really nice bird's eyes here that coming up that you can see how this building, although tall, really does fit within the context, and it's not towering over other buildings in the area, and it fits within the kind of general streetscape in our opinion. So a view here looking south on University. Obviously, the university in the background. So you're looking up the hillside here. You can see the temple space here, the little new piece that's being connected there, and the existing or the proposed building. Moving down to grade and looking up that same view, and then just getting a little. I guess we're flipping to the other side on this one. So coming back from the university side, looking down the hill on University. The building is here to the right. I feel like you can really tell that it doesn't feel like it's out of scale or out of proportion with the other kind of context directly up the hill here. As you get down onto University, looking down, you have the bike path here on your right. The building actually feels lower than the existing garage. I think it's about the same height. Getting to the corner, the building obviously is taller, but I think we're doing something nice to come out, bring this mass forward, create a visual here that's engaging out towards the street, and that plaza space we have that wraps right around the corner here. Another image, and we hadn't really talked about this too much, but from Walnut Place, on the other end of the building, one of the things that we had done, and it was very intentional, and we just hadn't really brought it up much, is that this other darker mass that we have on the other end of the southern facade, it was intentionally located and proportioned to align with this street front, so that there was a visual terminus here to this space. This obviously being a strong pedestrian connection to the campus. And then just as you get to the corner of Walnut and Harrison, this title is wrong on this slide. You can see the building over the top of the existing building here. It doesn't feel like it's an 8-story building from the side, especially as you tuck into the hillside. And then just a couple of views we have from Madison. One of the things we tried really hard to get some street views along Madison, and like the context in the pictures were just really terrible, and you just couldn't really see anything. So all I have for Madison is these 2 bird's eye views. So one here looking east, the university here up to your right, and then this other one here looking west, the project being here in the middle. You can see that it feels like it's part of a datum of existing buildings, that it doesn't feel out of scale. And that was it. So happy to move back and forth to any of the images that you might want to go back to.
Okay. One thing I would ask, if you could send Kate what you just went through.
Sure.
So that would be important for us going forward to continue to review. I want to open it up to any of the board members for any comments.
May I just start off, John, and try and make this as concise as possible? Thanks for your efforts. Certainly widening the spaces and giving more breathing space to the temple is commendable. Thank you. To follow Julia's comment earlier, I would still request, if you would, to put the footprint in an outline form of the temple as we had recommended its original primary feature into one of your plans. We definitely appreciate you adding the 6 or the 8'3" that your drawing shows to the east end of the temple as the appropriate link to the new building. Thank you. 2 other comments. I think your very last slide that you showed, Matt, coming down Walnut and looking at the south elevation, that you showed the large dark element of the east wing as featured from the Walnut Ave view is significant in terms of building massing. That one right there, thank you. That shows the attention in actual building profile to how this will be read in the campus 3-dimensional view. What I'd like to say is, going back to your 2 plans that you showed previously of your amenity spaces at the lower levels, both on Madison Street as you enter and on University, that both of those elements are where the people will engage the building, and they might be pulled in underneath of your residential floors above to whatever degree you can. What I'm saying there is the building will then recess its physical form as the people enter the building, and that will help minimize the impact on the streetscape and the pedestrian encounter in the same way that your massing here on Walnut makes a cue to the rest of the university area. And I think that if both of those areas at the lower levels below your residential floors could be recessed significantly enough to invite people into your complex, that would help simplify the upper floors as a different element, and I think that's important. Your point about the 2-story building, which is the building, the west amenity space facing university. It's interesting. You actually are spending effort to make it look like its own, 2 or 3-story building. And my comment there might be that it might, and I agree with your points that you've made. I think my primary point is it's either that or recess it below the upper floors to help gain the overall massing of your complex and simplify that massing somewhat. In other words, not make another feature out of that two-story element. I appreciate your premise, I appreciate your goals, but in terms of the overall complex, that may be adding a little more complexity than is necessary. And with that, I'll
So
thank
it is actually recessed there. That dark room is recessed 2 or 2.5 feet.
Yeah, I saw that.
Edge.
I saw that because your roof overhangs that you can see. You can see the extra roof areas on the upper floors from the residential floors.
Right.
And
Jeff, can you go back to just put up because I'm trying to understand what Bob was saying. Can you go back to that plan?
To the elevation.
Or the elevation, because the way I looked at it, it was set back.
So this whole area.
So technically pedestrians are walking underneath that two-story space is set back and the mass above it is, sits proud of it, correct?
Right. So this whole area here is set back, I think 2 or 2.5 feet. And then this band that goes around it is projected about a foot. So helping to really emphasize that setback there.
So what I guess the question I have is, I'm not understanding, Bob, are you suggesting it be moved back even more?
I think the third floor in this plan, is this the right third floor? In other words, I think the darker elements you show here below the upper residential might all be pressed back to the same profile as you mentioned. That's what I'm suggesting.
I still don't understand, Bob. What are you asking for the two-story space that they have recessed back for that to be recessed additionally?
No. The two-story space is recessed, as John has just mentioned. The next floor up, which is rendered dark here, is that right, John? This residential floor.
It is. This is the third floor, and it is also, this wall is aligned with the floor below.
So it's recessed back.
Yeah.
And because I'm reading it as basically you've got the two-story space at the grade level plus another floor that's recessed back. Is that correct?
Right. So one thing to note is this is no longer a two-story space. The two-story space used to come up through the third floor. So by reducing that, it helps bring the glazing level down. It makes this feel less kind of
okay. Yes. Then you're right. John, you're right. I'm just looking at your third floor plan. That residential floor is recessed all in one element. That's good.
Correct.
That's the right idea. And you might, I guess my comment would go, and this might be too difficult to achieve, but as you turn to the north side of that residential, that could be pulled back to a single recessed line under the element above. Yeah, I'm still trying to pull back that wall away from the temple somewhat.
This one here.
Yeah, that's right. That facade there, to pull that back in the upper floor will simplify that whole corner element. And I just say that's a volumetric kind of simplification that I would recommend you to consider. That's all. Yeah.
Gotcha. We can look at that a little further.
Okay, that'd be good. And I know that you don't have everything ready yet, but in our short discussion, we were talking on the east side, especially, as well as the north side. There were different discussions about putting different elements and landscaping. So we do want to see that, but I guess I'll just talk about the elephant in the room right now. That's just the overall size. And I'm speaking to the board and looking at our Secretary of Interior standards, standard number 9 and 10, and looking at the scale, proportion, and massing that is suggested to protect the integrity of adjacent properties and the overall environment in which this sets. So,
John, could I just
discussion about that?
Yeah. John, could I just add
Sure.
one quick thing too, and that is that Across the street is the Madison Street apartment building, which is National Register eligible. And then right around the corner on Madison and Walnut is, in the shadow of this building, if you will, is the Sherbrooke apartment building too, which is a local protected site.
Right.
So I think that obviously for obvious reasons, a lot of attention has been paid to the temple itself, but there is this other context that the board should consider in its comments. Thanks.
I want to speak to the team and just wonder, is there anything that you're willing or able to do, stepping in certain floors, reducing floors, anything along those lines that is in the plan or possible?
If you mean the team on our side, this is Mark Riley with the developer. I'm not sure there's a lot of space to work with, say in our courtyard or some of the open spots.
Yeah, I'll just add a little color. This is Aaron Stang as well, another one of the developers here. So, we've evaluated this in a number of ways, and just as a refresher, I'm sure the board is aware of this, but when we originally evaluated this site, we were kind of doing a facadectomy, for lack of a better term. And unfortunately, the sanctuary and kind of the immediate space that surrounds it does take up a substantial portion of the total site. And so, I think we were kind of left with, this as our really only option for preserving the financials necessary for this deal to work. And so, I think I want to say it's 25%. I can't remember the exact portion of the area, but it is a significant portion of the total site area.
Okay, so let me just put it directly. When we expect to see a C of A, we're going to be seeing essentially what we're seeing now in terms of the elevation and height of the building.
That's correct.
Okay, so the applications that are in to the zoning office as this building in terms of mass and scale with a floor area ratio, height, and sort of the explanations and the standards of proof, based on current zoning, potential future zoning under rezone Syracuse and other projects that have been developed, this is what the project team is looking for in terms of quote unquote overall approvals between the BZA and landmark preservation.
Okay, I would again ask the development team as soon as possible to get to Kate those bird's eye views, as well as your grading plan, as well as any other treatments that we discussed, be they window sizes or landscaping, against the garage on the north and east elevation. The sooner you can get that material, proposed material to us, the more time we're going to have to take a look and comment.
I have a quick comment, if I may.
Sure, Lisa.
Again, Don, I think your summation of the elephant in the room is very on point. The bird's eye views and the Google Maps or Google Earth, whatever it was. Not one time did we see this structure, the temple, in any of those views. And that to me will remain an issue. I will continue to be very, very concerned about the size of this in relation to that temple. So I just want to make that for the record, please.
Okay. Any other comments by any board members? While we're thinking, I certainly want to commend the team for your response to many of the questions. And I think what we have to do on our end is to accept the reality that this is the proposal in terms of the size and the scale. And we're going to have to make our recommendations, pro, con, or whatever, based on that reality. I think we have to acknowledge what the development team has done, and yet also acknowledge the fact that in terms of the size of the building, this is what's going to be submitted for us to respond to.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
to John, the architect?
Sure.
Specifically looking from this view where you can see the roof of the temple and you can see the north elevation. It just dawned on me in terms of that north elevation next to the courtyard. So it's really this between the south elevation of the temple and your massing right there. That massing in this view looks quite large compared to the north elevation that's on Madison.
Yeah.
And it's a material change because if you take a look at that, perhaps, and it's something you'd have to study because I do like the corner piece and the change in material, but perhaps the change in material extends up like you've done on Madison Street, so that the two top stories appear differently. Am I being clear about that? Do you understand what I'm?
Yeah.
Because if you then look at,
Yeah.
right, so then if you do look at the corner of University and Madison, and you're looking at your corner glazed fitness area, it helps to reduce the mass of that piece. I feel like you've helped reduce it by a change of materials on the Madison Street side. But that piece there, shall I say it's the white stone? I don't know what material you're using there, but the way in which it's rendered on Madison in terms of change of material as opposed to this wing is different. And this looks larger than what's happening on Madison. And perhaps if you could study that, and I don't have a suggestion of what that material, maybe it's the what appears to be a brick color wrapped around, allowing the upper story to then, complete the courtyard to the piece that's behind the temple. Does that make sense?
Julia, are you speaking to the actual material or color?
Both. Well, because from this rendering, I don't know what the actual material is. So right now I only can speak towards in terms of color. But the way in which the fenestration is designed on the piece that faces Madison is different from this piece. And the two wings surrounding the temple are fenestrated differently, obviously by design, but I'm looking at it if perhaps there was a datum line that comes across within the courtyard area, it would help reduce the massiveness of this wing. Because you could see that when you looked at the aerial view, if you go back to that aerial view looking up University, to me, it appears like the piece at the courtyard behind the temple, between the courtyard, the south face of the temple and that north face of that wing, appears more massive than the piece that's on Madison.
Right.
And yet it's all the same height.
Which another question I'd ask is, in your final submission, please have a full range of both, not just materials, but color and samples to the degree that you can. Color samples to the degree that you can.
John, hopefully I explained it, well, something to consider.
Right. I think I absolutely agree that there is some work that we could do here. I think it's always funny, like looking at different perspectives when you're designing a building. I think we designed it primarily from that kind of perspective from the intersection. Mm-hmm. And we felt that in that perspective, kind of creating two distinct backdrops that felt like they just weren't trying to have extra detail or compete with the temple in that thought process. And from that view, it made a lot of sense. But from these perspectives, it does appear a lot larger than I think we meant for it to. So I think we can definitely take a look at that and how that's demonstrated.
Okay.
Don, I had another comment for the development team, just
Okay.
if I could, all relative to this point about the size of your project and its impact on the temple and the neighborhood. I did a very quick calculation. If you take my suggestion is this, that consider lowering the 8-story building on Madison to 6-story, and just bear with me. And the number of units placed there could be accommodated on your south and east wing if they went to 9-story. So in terms of your numbers, you would get almost the same number of beds with some articulation of this Madison Street element coming down 1 or 2 floors. If I take the total number of units, you have the long bar on the south side and you have the long bar on the east side. If those went to 1 more story high, you could drop everything else 2-story. Consider that. I think your numbers would stay the same. The massing would be significantly changed. Just consider that in this large scale project issue. Thank you.
So to make
Bob,
sure I
Bob,
understand
can
that-
you, I'm not understanding where the 2 stories would be added.
So if I can try to
Yeah.
summarize that to make sure I understand, you're saying whether it's this whole bar or maybe even just this front piece of the bar, if this was to go to 6 stories, so you were to relocate the units along here in another story on the back side.
I'm using your stylus. I can't quite see
sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? Hold on a second. I'm gonna
Yeah, you got it.
try to mark it up. So if we were to do, you're saying if we were to get rid of, say, just this portion, and then sorry, I just lost my.
Yeah.
I'll just do this, and then add in something like that. So figure out the right proportions of those, but lose 2 stories here to gain a story back here.
Yeah, roughly. That was it, roughly. And John, just let me go one step further. I would not, my suggestion, the quick sketch I did, took down both the double corridor that's it, took that down and took it back maybe to the, if you let your east wing L go all the way to street to Madison, you could bring back, there you go. You got the basic concept. Drop that to 6 from 8. And then take your 8th floor L, which is the east leg and the south leg of your double loaded corridor, to 9. You almost match your numbers.
Yeah. If you're going to entertain that and work that through, I would go 1 step further and look at the eastern elevation. And I think you had that drawn in before, and pull that east. If you're going to be looking at this, pull that eastern elevation down a little bit too.
Yeah, I agree, Don, with you that the whole project is large and we're trying to mitigate if your project can't change by pro forma, then we're trying to accommodate your project with the maximum implications. And these are just a couple of options for you to consider. And that's a large scale consideration for you folks. I understand.
We do realize that. So
I'm just trying to help the context. Yep.
What is the building what is the building, if you're looking at the Temple Concord from University, what is the building to the right? The existing.
It's a wood frame 3-story.
Little house.
Yeah.
Apartment building. There used to be another one on the property that got
it's on that
down. That was right next to it in the grass area previously.
Right.
I guess my concern would be is now all of a sudden making it even taller on that side. Because what I appreciated from looking at the street views, from looking, let's say, from Hall of Languages down University, if you looked at the top of the buildings, it actually, in my opinion, feels comfortable, especially next to the garage. It almost appears like they're the same height, but you add a story on top of that wing, you lose that kind of perspective.
Well, I think that's something we'd have to see. It would certainly be a different one, but I guess this is going to be a trade-off from the existing proposal to maybe a different change along the lines that we are now talking about, the impact on structures immediately adjacent, which is what the standards talk about most, versus what you were just talking about, Julius. You know, again, I want to stress to the development team what Bob just said, that we understand that this is a large scale consideration, but we'd appreciate you considering anything based on what you're hearing and getting us the material requested. And let's continue to work on this.
Yeah, plus we probably need a view so that we see the effect on the Sherbrooke, which is on the east side.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about.
So just a question, are you looking for shadow studies? Because I heard shadowing and things like that. Are you looking for those type of things for, you know?
I know we had discussed those a while ago, and they'd certainly be helpful if you could get them.
That was
That's something that you can prepare based on the iterations that we have?
Based on what we have, yeah, we can run a shadow study.
I think it would be really helpful to see. Again, this is Kate. I'm just harking back again to the Sherbrooke, which Julia just mentioned again too. That to see at least one of the elevations, that east elevation, with at least the outline of what the Sherbrooke, of the Sherbrooke, in that elevation would be really helpful.
And I echo that because that was part of the conversation of the landscaping on that east side.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that in terms of a buffer. So looking at that would be helpful.
And the shadow study being really obviously on all elevations, but in particular we're interested on well, I'm sorry, I speak for myself, the north side as well as the east side of the buildings.
Sure. So typically when we do a shadow study, we're going to look at it in plan view, and we'll compare those shadows of existing conditions with shadows of proposed conditions. So you would see that from all sides.
That sounds good.
Area.
Again, we appreciate your attention. We appreciate your response, and let's continue working together.
Yeah. Chairman, one question for you. On the agenda prior to the discussion, I think the Board of Zoning Appeals put out a lead agency determination request, and they need responses. Well, you don't have to respond, but if you do, it would allow the Board of Zoning Appeals to start movement within 30 days.
That's on our agenda as soon as we're done here.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, James, you jumped ahead. Don't worry, I had it covered.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much, and we'll just continue, and we'll be looking forward to the additional material. If you can send some of that out before the C of A application, it'll give us time to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your efforts.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, two slight remaining issues. One is was just discussed. We just need to make an affirmative statement by the board that we support the BZA being lead agency.
4910 Madison. Yep.
Pardon?
Yeah, for the 910 Madison
Madison.
project.
Is there any discussion by the board on that? I'm assuming we're going to say yes.
I would agree.
Okay, good. So Kate can just show in the minutes that the board is in complete affirmation of the BZA being the lead agency.
Yes.
And then lastly, Kate, you sent me a message. There was the head of the said association on the prior application regarding the fence that wanted to speak, came in after.
There were some, so, in regard to the fence, and maybe Lisa may have more information too, but I know that there have been some disputes with this particular neighbor and some issues. The fence was originally proposed to be vinyl, and that was that we put up a stop to that before it even got to you. There was also some concerns. So they had sent me some comments, which I had shared with Don, about this proposal, and one of them was that there was a bit of a space between the property line and I actually can show it to you. Hold on here.
I don't want to interrupt, but I have to go to another meeting, so I'm going to have to.
You have to go. Yeah, there's
nothing else that we're going to vote on, so that's fine.
Yeah, no, we're fine. Thanks, Julia.
Okay. Thanks. Take care.
Yep, you too. Stay safe.
You too. Can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so the concern was about the space, if you can see my cursor, the space here and along here, that it was creating an air, and I guess there are trees and bushes that are back here, that it was creating a maintenance problem. But I spoke to codes, and they said that this is actually fairly typical, that you leave a little bit of space between the back so that you can actually maintain the fence itself, especially if they want to, without needing permission to get onto a neighbor's property. And also you'll see that the neighbors themselves have a wood fence and a chain link that are back here. I think the majority of their concerns, and Lisa, you could please feel free to chime in, actually don't have anything to do with the Landmark Preservation Board per se, but more sort of codes and the use of the property for storage of landscaping equipment and that kind of thing. So I don't know, Lisa, did you have anything else?
Yeah,
intel?
I guess my local touch on this is that I think just for the sake of maybe diffusing some of the consternation that does exist on that corner of the street, if we could just show our residents that we're on top of this fence and making sure that it's all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, I think that would go a long way.
Is Lisa, is this property being used to store landscape equipment for a business as a tenant?
Yes, it is.
And can that be dealt with, Kate, some other way?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bob. I got distracted by something. Could you say that again?
No, I was sensitive to the issue that this residential building as a rental is being used to store landscape business equipment, and is that an inappropriate issue that can be dealt with by zoning or something?
No, it's definitely covered by zoning and by code. They're not allowed to. They've already been cited for that. It was storing
and it would be up the codes.
Definitely.
Generally, in response to a neighbor's complaint, it is not anything that LPB weighs into.
I agree.
Yet at the same time, Lisa is absolutely correct.
Yep.
We did our due diligence, and the actual construction of the fence, where it is, the style, the material are all appropriate and met conditions to be approved. Those other issues are what they are. And okay.
Not our primary goal. I agree. I was just trying to understand the condition.
And I think with the past issues, not obtaining the proper permits ahead of time and going ahead with the fence, knowing full well that probably was not going to fly. I think if we just keep this in our crosshairs a little bit and make sure that the color or the stain or is comes before us, and we make comments and make sure that it's done properly. I think that would go a long way.
Good point, and that will be in the resolution of the C of A.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Anyone?
Do I hear a motion?
Can I just could I just ask one?
Cynthia,
sure.
Cynthia,
sorry, one quick question, or a request rather. If people could submit to me just a quick couple sentences about their comments regarding their overall comments for 910 Madison, that I can make sure that the minutes are, or perhaps what I'll do is I'll write up the minutes and then send them to you. But I want to just make sure that
I was going to ask you to do that. If you could write it up and then everybody respond immediately to those draft minutes.
Don, can I just say, and I'll let you go, I promise. I understand there's a reality to this project and there's financials, and I understand that. But I just feel as though there's a lot of dancing around our primary concern about the temple.
Right.
And a lot of, not a dog and pony show, but a little bit of deflection off of what we're really trying to solve here. And I understand there's realities to it, but I just, I kind of see through a lot of that, and it's a little frustrating. That's all.
Yeah, no, the bottom line is this is a huge building.
Right.
And it's going to come down to not only our comments, but whether or not they get variances.
Right.
It's a huge building, and we just need to do our part.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. And it's something that we have not been as fortunate to have in past submissions. Yeah, there's dog and pony show. Yeah, there's this, but this development team has been responsive, and the actual temple is being saved in whole.
Right.
And those are all very positive things.
Right.
However, all that said, it's a big, big building.
Yes.
Yeah, Don, I think you were right on track and bringing in the interiors standards relative to our review. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind. The primary goals is to review a project that's being proposed based on the Secretary of Interior standards, regardless of our personal feelings about the size of the project or whatever. So I appreciate that comment by you. And I also, this is an open meeting, and I think everybody understands the impact of this project. The applicant is at this meeting presently, and I think all of our efforts have been to support their goals as they've stated them and bring more appropriate success to their project through the historic preservation context. So thank you, Don.
Okay. Right, well,
oops. Oh, no. Cynthia.
Yeah.
Unmute, Cynthia.
Unmute.
Sorry.
There you go.
I was not at that meeting. It was Julia. So for the minutes, the meeting previously was Don and Bob and Julia, not
Julia.
me.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was aware of that, Cynthia.
Cynthia, you're out of my mind. What can I say? Okay. All right. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Okay.
Second.
Great.
Thank you, Tom.
Stay safe, everybody, and continue to look at materials. Thank you very much.
Thank you.